I wasn't supposed to be home. That's what kept playing through my head as I pulled into our driveway, a line on repeat, like some weird internal warning. I had booked a seminar in Sacramento for the full weekend, 2 days of dry lectures and hotel coffee. But the thing got canceled late Friday morning due to a power outage at the venue. Rather than calling Ellie or texting her, I just packed my things and drove back in silence. Part of me liked the idea of showing up unannounced. Not in some controlling way, it wasn't like that. I thought maybe it'd be a fun surprise. Maybe we'd grab dinner. Maybe I'd catch her mid-project in one of her scattered, messy artist moods. I used to love walking in on her like that. Paint on her arms, half-formed ideas on her lips. She always looked alive then. Real. But something felt off the second I walked through the door. First thing I noticed? A black windbreaker hanging by the coat hooks near the door. Definitely not mine. I don't own anything like that. Too athletic, too new, and not my size. It had one of those zippered sleeves with a little logo stitched in white thread. I'd never seen it before in my life. Below it sat a pair of running shoes, scuffed, but still in decent shape. Men's. Size 11, maybe 12. Bigger than mine, broader. The laces were double knotted like whoever wore them ran a lot. Serious runner behavior. At first, I froze in the doorway. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe Ellie's brother stopped by. Or a neighbor. But she would have mentioned that, right? She usually did. The house was quiet. Eerily quiet. No music. No hum of the old box fan we usually kept running upstairs. No clinking in the kitchen. Just a silence that felt too still for this place. Even the air smelled different, like linen spray, or someone had just opened a window and let the day inside to cover something up. I took a breath and stepped inside, closing the door slowly behind me. Ellie, I called, casual, as if I hadn't just stumbled into the middle of someone else's story. No answer. I climbed the stairs slowly. Something in me didn't want to see the bedroom. Something else did. When I got there, the door was open and the room was pristine, like a showroom. Our bed was neatly made, which was strange in itself. Ellie rarely bothered to make the bed unless we were having people over, and even then, it was half-hearted at best. But today, the comforter was smoothed down, corners folded tight, pillows arranged in pairs like in a hotel. It felt impersonal, staged. And that's when I saw it. One of the pillows, mine, had a faint smudge of pink lipstick near the corner. A perfect crescent, like someone had rolled over too fast, like it hadn't even been noticed. My heart stalled for a beat. Ellie used to wear that exact shade. Back when we first started dating, she wore it on our third date. I remember because it left a mark on my shirt collar and she teased me about it all night. But that was years ago. She hadn't worn that color in at least 3 or 4 years, said it made her look too young, that she preferred natural tones now. So why now? Why here? I stepped closer, heart thudding, staring at that tiny, stupid smear like it held a confession. The bathroom door was half open. I went in and looked around. 2 damp towels were hung neatly on the rack. Mine was supposed to be in the laundry. I'd used it 2 days ago before leaving and tossed it in the hamper. But here it was, wet used. The other towel wasn't hers. Same pattern, sure, but it looked newer, heavier. She always used the faded one with the frayed edges. It was her favorite. The toothbrushes were untouched, lined up perfectly. Too perfectly. Back downstairs, I tried to quiet the knot forming in my stomach. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. Maybe everything had a logical explanation. But my gut said otherwise. My gut said I was the only one surprised by my early return. I found her in the kitchen. She was washing a mug, back to me, humming something low and tuneless. She wore yoga pants and a plain white tee. Casual, too casual. Her hair was pulled up, freshly washed. She didn't jump or flinch when I walked in. Instead, she turned around with a smooth, practiced smile. Oh, you're back early. Yeah. Seminar got canceled, I said, watching her closely. Thought I'd just come home. She dried her hands with a dish towel, nodding like I'd just told her it might rain later. That *C case. Long drive. Not too bad. There was a pause. She didn't ask why I hadn't texted. She didn't look confused or surprised or anything that made sense for someone who wasn't expecting me home for another day and a half. Want some coffee? She asked, already reaching for another mug. There was something in her voice, too bright, too rehearsed. I couldn't unhear it now. Then came the parade of explanations. She gestured toward the door. Oh, by the way, that jacket, that's Steve's. He swung by earlier to drop off some paperwork I left at the office. Didn't stay long. I hadn't asked about the jacket. Not once. She kept going. And the shoes? Also his. Weird, right? He said they were hurting his feet or something. Ran to the store barefoot, like a weirdo. I gave a slow nod, still saying nothing. Oh, and that lipstick on the pillow. Yeah, I found an old tube in the bathroom drawer. Thought I'd try it on for fun. Didn't realize it smudged. She laughed, a little too hard. Guess I should have cleaned it. Every word came too fast, too ready. Like she'd rehearsed this. Like she'd walked through this scene in her head and memorized the script. But it wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Her voice never wavered. Her eyes never blinked. She moved through the room like an actress hitting her marks, pretending it was just another normal Saturday. I sipped the coffee she handed me. It tasted like ash. We sat in silence for a moment, her scrolling absently on her phone while I stared at the window. My mind raced, cataloging every detail. The shoes, the jacket, the towels, the perfect bed, the lipstick, and more than anything, her calm. Because if this had been innocent, if I'd truly caught her off guard, there would have been shock. Questions. Maybe even a joke about me sneaking up on her. But there was none of that. There was only this smooth transition into small talk, her sliding back into our shared routine like she hadn't just hidden someone else's presence 5 minutes ago. I looked at her fingers. No trembling. Her phone buzzed, and she flipped it over without looking at it. Just like she always did when I entered the room. She laughed at something on the TV. I didn't even notice she had turned it on. I felt like a ghost in my own home. Like I'd walked into a version of my life where I didn't quite belong anymore. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. And that's when it hit me. Not like a lightning bolt, but like a slow, dull pressure in my chest. This wasn't her first time doing this. The jacket, the shoes, the towel, the lipstick, they weren't accidents. They were oversights. Slips in a routine she'd gotten too comfortable with. Mistakes made by someone who'd assumed they had more time to clean up. And she'd done this all before. I just wasn't supposed to see it that I didn't confront her that night. I didn't ask follow-ups or demand a straight answer. I just sat on the couch beside her, nodding when appropriate, pretending the coffee in my hand didn't taste like betrayal. In my head, though, something had shifted. Something permanent. That night, after she went upstairs, I heard the bedroom door close softly, as if she were afraid to wake a version of me that no longer existed. I stayed downstairs, staring into the blue light of the muted TV. The images moved, but I couldn't follow them. My mind was trapped in a loop. The jacket, the shoes, the lipstick, the timing. It was like trying to reconstruct a crime scene from memory. But the crime wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It lived in patterns and subtlety, in what wasn't said, what wasn't done. And suddenly, I couldn't stop myself from replaying the last year like a detective at a corkboard, red thread connecting moments I had convinced myself were meaningless. Like the weekend in May when she'd driven up to Monterey for a wellness retreat and came back smelling like bourbon. Not sunscreen or lavender oil, bourbon. I remember asking how it went. She said, relaxing. Just what I needed. No photos, no texts from the trip. She said phones weren't allowed at the retreat. Digital detox, she called it. Or the time she came home late from a client session. Makeup perfectly in place. Perfume I'd never smelled on her before clinging to the air like an accusation. I had said nothing. I blamed traffic. I blamed work stress. I blamed myself. And then there were the texts, half-seen notifications she'd swipe away before I could read the name. Always followed by the phone flipping face down, screen dark. Just work, she said. My client's a little needy. I think that was the moment it started, me rewriting reality in real time. I started to excuse everything because the alternative felt too big to hold. I wanted to believe her. Hell, I needed to. I had bet too much of my life on her being the person I thought I married. But memory is a funny thing. It waits. And when you give it permission, it floods you all at once. Like how she started showering before bed, something she never used to do. It helps me sleep better, she'd said. But it always happened on the same nights she'd come home late. And how she started carrying a second phone charger in her purse. How she stopped leaving her laptop on the kitchen counter, the way she used to when she'd answer work emails while making dinner. I hadn't seen that laptop open in months. She also got more secretive with her calendar. The shared Google Calendar we once used to coordinate things, grocery runs, weekend plans, the occasional friend's birthday, was now empty on her end. I've been keeping track on paper, she said once, like we'd time traveled to 1998. I hadn't questioned it. Not then. God, I remember a Sunday night just a few weeks ago. We were in bed, backs to each other. I tried reaching for her under the covers, brushing my hand across her hip. She didn't pull away exactly, but she tensed. After a beat, she said she was too tired. I lay awake the rest of that night. She was already asleep before I even rolled back to my side. It wasn't just the S*X, or lack of it. It was everything that came before it. The softness, the spark, the way she used to lean into me without thinking. That quiet magnetism between people who knew each other's rhythm. It was gone. I hadn't even noticed when it left. Or maybe I had. I just didn't want to admit it. You know that thing they say about boiling frogs? How if you turn up the heat slowly enough, they won't jump out. That's what this felt like. Except I wasn't boiling. I was drowning. Drowning, and every time I let myself believe this was normal. That we were just in a rut. That this was what long-term love looked like. Distant, strained, quiet. But it wasn't a rut. It was a slow disintegration. A shedding. And I was the skin she was stepping out of. I started looking closer. Not just at her, but at us. The inside jokes we used to have. Gone. The stupid nicknames? Replaced with generic pet names like Han or Babe. They felt like placeholders, like she couldn't remember which version of me she was supposed to be talking to. We used to send each other dumb memes, stupid animal videos, inside jokes about our neighbors. That stopped somewhere along the way, too. Now her phone buzzed for someone else, and I didn't even ask anymore. Then came the motel charge. It showed up on our credit card statement under Sunrise Inn, a town about 45 minutes east, small enough to not have anything resembling a conference center or a client office. When I asked about it, she blinked. "Oh, that?" she said, like I'd asked about the weather. "That was for a coworker. I paid for their room and got reimbursed." It's a long story, but there was no receipt. No reimbursement in our joint account. Just the charge. Just the lie. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I stared at the charge on my screen for hours. Googled the motel. Looked at the pictures. Cheap, dated decor. The kind of place you rent by the hour when you don't want to be recognized. Or when you want to disappear. I remember sitting there, staring at that photo of room 114, and thinking, this is where she was. Not a conference room. Not a retreat. Not a late client session. Here, on that floral bedspread, under that flickering ceiling fan. That was the night something in me cracked. I started noticing the perfume again. The new one, spicy, bold, not her usual scent. The one she never wore around me, only after she got dressed to go out. One night, I asked what it was called. She shrugged. It's a sample. I don't even like it that much. But she wore it again, and again, every Friday night, every girl's dinner, or work thing. And the lingerie? That came next. It wasn't subtle. She started ordering pieces online, tags I found in the trash, receipts left in her email. Lace, strappy things, the kind of stuff she hadn't worn since our honeymoon. But she never wore them for me. I asked once, cautiously, "When do you get new stuff?" She smiled, distracted. "Oh, just updating my wardrobe. You know, self-care." But that's the thing. When someone buys lingerie and never shows it to you, it's not self-care. It's a performance, and you're not the audience. One night, I opened the drawer in her dresser, just curious. Just confirming. Half the stuff still had tags, hidden behind socks and scarves. Like she wasn't even bothering to make it look innocent. That night, we lay in bed again, back to back, the silence deafening. I didn't reach for her, and she didn't notice, because she wasn't mine anymore. Not really. Every day that passed, I saw more of the cracks I'd ignored. Every late return, every vague story, every laugh that sounded too light, every excuse too clean. The puzzle was forming itself whether I wanted to see it or not. I had been living in a house of whispered lies and polished rehearsals, and I didn't even know the script. But I still didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I just watched, documented, waited, because I didn't want to destroy her. Not yet. I wanted to be sure. And the moment I stopped making excuses for her was the moment I started looking for the truth that I didn't want revenge. I wasn't trying to catch her just to say I was right. I wanted certainty. Clean, undeniable truth. The kind you couldn't manipulate with tone or half-lies. I wasn't even angry, not really. Not yet. What I felt was something colder, more clinical. Like a surgeon tracing the edge of a tumor, knowing it had to be cut out. So I made a decision. One night, while Ellie was in the shower, I pulled her old tablet out of the drawer in the home office. She never used it anymore, claimed it was too slow, but she never wiped it either. I plugged it in, waited for it to charge, and then started going through her synced data. Most of it was harmless: recipes, yoga videos, Pinterest boards full of half-started home decor ideas. But tucked between the clutter was her email, still logged in. The inbox was clean. Too clean. But I knew how to look deeper. I went into her archive, her deleted folder, her sent messages. Nothing. Then I remembered the password manager she used, an app she had shown me years ago when she was feeling proud of her digital hygiene. I opened it. She hadn't logged out. And that was the moment everything started falling into place. The app held keys to other apps, messaging platforms, multiple Gmail accounts, one I didn't recognize. I clicked into it. Boom. The first thing I saw was a string of emails between her and someone named Zach. Zach. Just the name made my stomach clench. Simple, casual, confident. The emails weren't explicit, not in the physical sense, but they were in asterisk mate. Familiar, laced with inside jokes and references I didn't understand. Things like, next time don't hog the blanket. Face with tears of joy. Room 114 again. You really are a creature of habit. This weekend still on? And then photos. One of them showed a breakfast tray from some hotel. Room service, 2 plates, 2 coffees, and a little vase with a yellow flower. Another had Ellie's handwriting on a napkin. Z plus E equals bad decisions. A joke, maybe. A confession. My hands were shaking by the time I closed the email. But I kept digging. She'd used the same password for an app one didn't recognize. I downloaded it onto my phone and signed in using her credentials. The icon looked like a weather widget. Innocent. Discreet. But it wasn't weather. It was a hidden messaging platform. The kind people use when they don't want to be found. That's where the full story lived. Hundreds of messages, back and forth between her and Zach. Timestamps. Locations. Images. Everything. The earliest ones dated back almost a year. They talked about everything: his workouts, her projects, inside jokes about me. He still has no clue, she wrote once. It's almost impressive. That one hit like a gut punch. Some messages were simple, flirty. Missed you this morning. Wish you were here now. Others were logistical. Check-in is under the name Claire again. Same card. Park around the back. The front desk guy remembers us. Every line of text chipped away at the life I thought I had. Every timestamp was a stolen moment. Every client session on her calendar lined up with a location ping from that motel. Room 114 wasn't just a slip-up. It was a fixture in their timeline. Their routine. I stared at one photo for a long time. It was just a messy bed, sun pouring through slatted blinds, her arm resting across someone's chest. His face wasn't visible, but his shoulder, tan, muscular, a tattoo of a compass, told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't me. I copied everything. Screensh asterisk TS. Message threads. Photos. I backed it all up to a private cloud account I created that night under a new name. I even made a spreadsheet. Dates, times, notes. I wasn't being obsessive. I was building a record. A history of a relationship that had existed in parallel to mine. One she'd carefully hidden under the noise of busy weeks and long days. When I was done, I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move for a long time. It wasn't shock. I think part of me had known for months, maybe longer. But knowing and proving are two different beasts. Now I had both. And the weirdest part? I felt relief. Not the kind that makes you smile. The kind that lets you breathe again after holding it in for too long. The fog of self-doubt. The kind that whispers maybe it's your fault, maybe you're imagining it, finally cleared. She hadn't made a mistake. This wasn't a one-time slip or a moment of weakness. Ellie had built something. A second life. A second self. While I was here cooking dinners, scheduling oil changes, asking about her day, she was sending selfies in motel mirrors to a man named Zach. And the worst part? She was good at it. She never tripped up, never contradicted herself. She had routines, a vocabulary, a system. The woman I had loved, the one who once cried at the end of Pixar movies, who called me to say, "I just felt like hearing your voice." That woman was gone. Replaced by someone who could share a bed with me one night and disappear into another world the next. I remember looking at her the next morning across the table. She was eating yogurt, scrolling through her phone. She looked relaxed, happy even. And I wondered, Is he texting her right now? Does she even hear the sound of her own lies anymore? I didn't say a word. I handed her the orange juice, kissed her on the temple, and said, "Have a good day." She smiled like nothing was wrong. Later that day, I bought a new phone and set up a discreet monitoring app. I didn't want to just catch her. I wanted to track her. Every message, every location, every digital footprint. I needed to know when she was lying to my face. I needed to learn her tells. The first ping came 3 days later. She said she had a late meeting with a new client. Could be a late night, she'd texted. But her phone pinged at the Sunrise Inn. Room 114. Again, I watched the dot on the map sit still for hours. Then a text came in from Zach. "God, I missed you. Same time next week? Let's make it a whole weekend next time. Screw the guilt." There was no mention of me. No hint of hesitation. No fear of being found out. I realized then, she hadn't even worried. She assumed I'd never question her. That I'd keep making her coffee, keep folding the laundry, keep playing house, while she lived a secret life one motel stay at a time. That was the moment I stopped being her husband. Not legally. Not yet. But emotionally. Spiritually. Done. I didn't confront her that night. I took *TS. Logged the time. Noted what she was wearing when she came home. Blue dress. Tan heels. No bra. She said the meeting went great. That the client wanted to book a follow-up. She kissed me on the cheek. I kissed her back. Then I walked upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and uploaded more files. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel rage. I felt something simpler. Sharper. Control. I wasn't going to beg for honesty anymore. I wasn't going to cry at the edge of our bed wondering what I did wrong. I was going to document everything. And when the time came, when the final piece of this charade crumbled, I was going to be ready. Not for drama. Not for revenge. For freedom. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of good morning kisses. 2 weeks of freshly brewed coffee, folded laundry, and her laughing at sitcoms I wasn't really watching. 2 weeks of her pretending she lived in the same version of this marriage that I used to believe in. And me? I kept doing what I did best, staying quiet, staying kind, and paying attention. She thought we were healing. She thought I had stopped questioning where she went on Fridays, or why her phone still buzzed with silent notifications after midnight. She thought she'd won. But the difference between peace and surrender is subtle. From the outside, they look the same. But one is freedom. The other is calculation. I knew which one I was living in. I had continued logging everything. Every text, every phone call, every time she had to work late. And her GPS showed her 2 zip codes away, parked behind that same motel. Same room. Same man. She had a system. I had a system. But now it wasn't about collecting data. It was about precision. I was watching her not just to catch her, but to understand what fear looked like when it crept in slowly. That night, we went to a friend's house for game night. For couples we'd known for years. People who still believed in US, who sent us Christmas cards with notes like, "Still our favorite team." I wonder what they'd write if they saw the truth. Ellie spent the entire drive there humming along to a playlist she'd made for us back when we still had road trip traditions. She played it like a script. Like putting on old music would rewind us to a time before her lies and my silence. I let it play. I smiled when she looked at me between songs. She looked relaxed, at ease, like she truly believed things were back on track. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. At Rachel and Daniel's house, the living room was warm and cluttered. Candles, half-empty wine bottles, laughter echoing in waves. Ellie fit right in. She always did. She was the one who remembered birthdays, who brought the best bottle of wine, who made every story sound just a little more charming. She had always been good at this. Pretending. I stood behind her as she laughed at something Sarah said. Ellie leaned back into me slightly, rested her hand on my leg. A subtle display. A message for the room. See? We're fine. But I saw it now. All of it. The timing of her jokes. The way her fingers drummed against the wine glass when the topic turned to marriage. The way she overcorrected when someone brought up trust in a relationship. And the way she watched me. Not lovingly, not curiously, but carefully. Like she was measuring how much I still believed her. Later that night, we played a group game. One of those deck of cards party things where you read a prompt and everyone answers with their honest truth. Most people laughed it off, gave silly answers. But then came the card that changed the air in the room. What's something you've never told your partner because you didn't think they could handle it? It was meant to be playful. Silly confessions. Embarrassing quirks. Daniel admitted he hated his wife's famous casserole. Sarah confessed she once dropped her husband's signed baseball in the sink and never told him. Everyone laughed. Then it was Ellie's turn. She paused. I watched her eyes scan the room, then land on me. She gave a nervous little laugh. I guess. I once deleted a voicemail from his mom before he could hear it. She was being kind of critical, and I didn't want to upset him. There were polite chuckles. She looked down at her wine, then back up at me. Our eyes met for a half-second longer than comfort allowed. I smiled. Not wide. Just enough. And then I picked up the next card. What's something your partner used to do that they stopped, and you still miss it? I held it up like a dealer at a poker table. Calm. Confident. Everyone went around. Inside jokes. Nostalgia. When it got to me, I said. She used to hum while brushing her teeth. Every morning. Ellie's glass froze halfway to her lips. She looked at me quickly, eyes flickering. She hasn't done it in almost a year, I added. I never noticed it was gone until I realized I missed it. The room was quiet for a moment. Someone let out an ah. But I wasn't talking to the group. I was talking to her. That night, in the car, she was quiet again. Not the comfortable quiet. Not the content kind. This one had weight. Tension. Her hands stayed folded in her lap. She stared out the window like it might give her answers. When we got home, she kicked off her shoes at the door and went straight to the kitchen. I followed a few minutes later. She was standing there, back turned, pouring water into the kettle. I didn't speak, just leaned against the counter and waited. Finally, she said, "What was that?" I tilted my head slightly. What was what? At the game. The humming thing. I shrugged. It was a real answer. You made it sound like, she stopped. I don't know. Like I stopped being who I was. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She turned around slowly. Are you trying to tell me something? That was it. The crack. The first tiny shift. The moment where her confidence, the performance, the staging, broke for just a second. I'm just answering questions, I said, keeping my tone light. She watched me for a long time. I saw her eyes scanning my face, searching for a giveaway, a slip, a sign that I knew what she didn't want me to know. Then she smiled. Tight. Nervous. Well, she said, I'll make more noise brushing my teeth if it means that much to you. I nodded. Wouldn't hurt. The next morning, I woke up and she was already brushing her teeth. Humming. Loudly. Deliberately. It was the wrong tune. I stood in the hallway, watching her in the mirror. She saw me and smiled with foamy toothpaste lips, like a kid performing for a parent. But I could see it now. The tension in her jaw, the tightness in her shoulders, the forced levity in her eyes. She was trying to get ahead of something she didn't even know was chasing her. And that was the moment I knew she was beginning to feel it. Not guilt, not remorse, but fear. She had no idea what I knew, no clue how much I had seen. And that terrified her. For the first time in months, I was the unknown variable. I was no longer the man she could predict. No longer the naive husband she could manipulate with a kiss and a gentle excuse. And she knew it. That's how the unraveling begins. Not with an explosion, but with a flicker. A smile that doesn't quite hold. A laugh that dies too quickly. A sentence that ends too soon. And once the mask slips, even for a second, it never fits the same way again.